Hello everybody, welcome back to the stream. So today I figured we'll just do a bunch of like random stuff that needs to be done for the game. I'm gonna take a break from the combat log because yeah, it's not going that well, so I need to just probably take a break from that and think on it a little bit. So yeah, anyway, so we're going to take a break from the combat log. We're going to be doing probably just a bunch of random fixes, some small content items, all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, Alka Mortis is still available for playtesting, so you can head on over to the Steam page, click request access to join the playtest. You can also add it to your wish list. I would appreciate that. You could also support the development by subscribing at Patreon. If you subscribe to the sponsored tier for at least 1 month, I will send you an Alka Mortis Steam key when the game launches, and I'll put your name in the in-game Alka Mortis credits. So that's a great way to support the game and also get some credits on the game. And also I have my Udemy courses. These will teach you how to build complete games in the Godot engine. So if that sounds interesting to you, check that out as well. Alrighty. So I was just looking at my board trying to figure out what we want to do. I do have this milestone, this goal to add 10 new content items, and this was supposed to be done within a week. So I've got today, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday to do 9 more items. So maybe we'll do some new items. I do want to do a cooldown pass. I do want to do that. I do want to rework the characters here. Prevent artifacts from adding abilities to reagents. Yeah, I probably should do that as well. What else? So there's a couple of bugs. Anyway, we'll just go kind of one at a time here and we'll figure it out. Oh, I was working on the shaping clay reagent. Right, we should finish that. I didn't get around to finishing that. Anyway, hello everyone, welcome. Welcome Clickertail. Hello Abo. Dan Gurup, welcome. Halkios Games, good to see you. Good morning. Ava, Zella, good morning. Alka Mortis, yes indeed. Hello, Emerson. Found the solution for making multiplayer games in Godot. There you go. Hello, Fozy Don. Gabdev, welcome. All right. So let's see here. So we've got this reagent shaping clay, which is just called reagent placeholder. So this reagent placeholder just duplicates an item outright. Character ID, a character that holds a femur bone, but the bone is so long that it extends off the screen. Okay. Goodness. Creates an exact copy of one adjacent allied item. There we go. Alrighty, so yeah, we just need to figure out what to do about that art. Let me think. Let's see. Do we have any player card ideas here? I might as well. Let's see. Maybe some kind of plant or something. I already have a bunch of plants, a bunch of flowers. Maybe an eyeball of some kind would be kind of cool. I did have an idea for, oh, this would be cool. Where did I put that? I had an idea for like a tall, skinny, like a 1x3 one. But it's like vine, it's like vines, but there's eyeballs on the vine. I think that would be kind of cool. Where did I put that? Did that not get saved? Oh, here. 1x3 vines of eyeballs. Yeah, there we go. Maybe we'll try that. Where is in progress? There we go. Okay. So we'll make this copy reagent the eyes of X here. You will get lobbies, leaderboards, friends, invitations, Steam overlays, Steam voice chat. Okay, well, the Udemy course doesn't go over that much, if that's what you're talking about. Don't prevent artifacts from adding abilities to reagents. I've been trying to do reagents only run for so long. Well, I mean, I'm open to not changing that. I was worried that because a lot of the reagents have low cooldowns that they would be too overpowered. But maybe not. Because like what's the only, I mean, there's only a handful of reagents that can affect, or a handful of artifacts that can affect reagents, right? You've got the draft of coagulation. What else is there? Yeah, maybe I won't do that. Anyway, let's work on this. So I'm going to create a new card. Eye vines, I guess. All right, let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. I think I'll start with... I'll just pepper these around. Okay, we'll try something like that. And then just for the sake of stubbing this out, I'm gonna do very rough, like just very rough kind of detailing here, just so I could see like what this is actually gonna end up looking like. This one is a little bit weird. I may not be able to do eyeballs that are this small. Well, let's try it out, I guess. If I do this. Yeah, I'm just always going to have to end up making them bigger than that, but that's okay. That is okay. Yeah, this is gonna be pretty cool, I think. Okay, so we've got our little eyeballs now. I'm gonna draw some vines. I'm gonna draw them as like really ugly green first, just because I want to get a feel for like what it's gonna look like first. So the green makes it easier to tell what's going on, kind of. Okay. Now I wonder if I should... Maybe I don't... Let's see. Sorry, I'm in the zone. This just generally needs to be thicker down here, I think. So do this. Yeah, I think something like that works. And then what I can do is I can have little thorns and stuff coming out. Let's see. Yeah, that's probably fine. Okay, that's probably fine. So let's do this. All right, so I'm gonna want to, yeah, basically just start shading all this stuff now. I wonder, I might want to move around some of these eyeballs. Like I might put this one up a little bit, or maybe here. I mean, maybe it was okay where it was. Maybe that feels a little bit better. Okay. Let's do the vine shading first. I've been trying draft, scorpion, stinger, venom vial to get all of my reagents, healing poison. Still haven't made it past the final first, or wow, I can't read today. Made it past the first boss though. Interesting. I think the game needs more contrast. Everything is too dark, maybe in my taste, I don't know. I will be adding stuff that you can control the contrast and the settings, but the color palette's not going to change, so. But I'm going to see if I can give players control over the contrast in the settings. I mean, it should be easy. Like, well, all you need to do basically is just, I forgot how to do it. I think you just add like a world environment or something. You do a world environment and then you do a new environment here. You could do adjustments, brightness, contrast. So we could turn the brightness and the contrast up. And then we want to change this mode to canvas, and then the canvas max layer, we just crank this up to the max. This is actually not going to work because it's going to get freed. But if I put it here, and I run the game, so I don't know if you could tell that looks a little bit different, but maybe what I'll try to do is, I wish I could change the, let's see, is this gonna work? Okay, all right, well, this is gonna be a little bit hard to do. But so I can turn the brightness up. Oh, it doesn't do anything? Well, anyway, I'll just crank these up. Crank those up and restart. So anyway, you can see it's quite different now, and I can also do, I wonder why it's not allowing me to change. I don't know why that's not auto updating. That's kind of odd. But in any case, I could at the bare minimum give players control over these like values, and then maybe I might just even define presets that look good to me. Could change the tone mapping as well. So at the very least, I may define a couple of presets that look good to me and offer those as options in the settings. So here's, ooh, that's too much. Man, I wish it would auto update. I don't know why it's not auto updating. But that's one thing that I can do. And then the other thing I can do is I can offer like palette swap options. So I could curate a couple of color palettes that I think still look okay in the game and give players the control over that. But I'm not going to be like redrawing anything to be brighter. I think I'm happy with how the style looks. So, hello, If Game Studio. Also welcome, Gimot. Got me some almonds. Nice. Work and stuff. Starting to sound like my commit messages when I'm working on some side project. I don't, you know, it's hard to come up with names for the stream every day. Ivines is very Bloodborne-esque. It is very Bloodborne-esque, yeah. Another day, another cool art. Thank you, old Pacheco. Do you have some best practices for using Godot's rendering server directly? I wish I did. I mean, I think like the rendering server that I'm using in Alka Mortis here is like my first approach at this. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say about best practices there, aside from, you know, just follow the typical way you modularize everything. So I built this class to be very, what's the word? Like all of the RIDs that get created in this class, in an instance of this class, are very carefully logged and stored in a list, so that when this ever does get deleted, which I have the notification pre-delete here, it clears all those RIDs. And clear RIDs iterates over all the RIDs and calls free RID on it. So I just tried to make this as like bulletproof as possible. Like I don't want any RIDs to leak, right? I don't want to create an RID and then never free it. So I just made sure to like set up a bunch of methods that handle that for me. So if I want like a new canvas item, what I did is instead of typing that manually every time, I created a method called create canvas item. And what this does is this automatically logs. It creates the RID, creates the canvas item with some default options, and adds that RID to the list of owned RIDs and then returns the RID, right? So I'm pretty much guaranteed that as long as I'm using this method every time I want to create a canvas item, that RID that gets created is always being logged in this owned RIDs list, right? So I suspect, like, again, I don't really know best practices, but I suspect that like building this kind of code that kind of like guarantees that every time an RID is created, it's being logged somewhere that it can be, so that you can free it later. I think that's an important thing to do. But other than that, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. The low cooldowns on reagents can be good, but the only especially good ones are the boss souls and the mystery juice. I think if you bring those in line, they shouldn't be too OP. Okay, awesome. Hello, Simon William Taylor. Welcome back. Snub Bill, thank you for the IDR 10,000. Always appreciated. Thank you. With the message Yummers. Hello, hello. Welcome back. Bit Beginnings. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Do you work only on stream? No. No, I don't work only on stream. To be honest, I'm feeling a little bit defeated because I literally worked like almost all day yesterday on the combat log, and it's just not working. I mean, what I mean when I say it's not working is not that, you know, the code is not functional. What I mean is like the UX is weird, the presentation is weird. I'm not sure if it's actually answering the questions that players have with respect to combat. So I worked like all day on it yesterday, and I feel like I made basically no progress. So that's why we're not doing any combat log stuff today, because I'm sick of it. Okay. This here, maybe I'll get rid of that. I'm still don't know if I want to like create. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. I think I'm gonna have to figure that out, but put this there. So the problem is going to be, the problem with this one is going to be just creating creating enough contrast between the eyeballs and the vines so that you can actually make out the eyeballs, right? But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. This one here. Wow. This may be a little tricky. Can always do that. Yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't think it should be too hard. It's just going to be... I think I'll probably just have to use... Yeah, that looks fine. I may just want to use this really dark purple as borders for the eyeballs where they meet the vines. That may be just what I want to do. So like up here, right? So we've got this. Probably want that. Probably want this. Maybe do something like looks a little odd to me. Probably fine. So yeah, we're just gonna go through and get this all shaded up, and then the eyeballs, they look a little bit flat right now, but I will shade those in a second. Made a game in progress right now. I presume your code preview still hold till Alchemort is finished. Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. It's for colleges, really, but guess the first time for everything. It's for, well, maybe I shouldn't assume it's for collages. How do you want it to work different to right now? I don't... Oh, the combat log? The combat log is just not very helpful. I mean, one of the problems with the current combat log is that, especially if you have a very sophisticated build, it's incredibly useless. Like, it's not easy to go back through the history and, like, look at everything. It's very hard to understand, for example, like if you beefed up a skeleton warrior, right? If you made a skeleton warrior super soldier and it just like is doing all kinds of stuff, it's very hard to like go back in the combat log and figure out everything that the skeleton warrior did. So that's one problem. One of the other problems is that it has massive performance problems, because what it does is it creates a new text line in a rich text label every time a log gets added. And so if you auto-resolve a combat and it generates like 5,000 events, it tries to, you know, do all those 5,000 lines with formatting and highlighting and coloring and all that stuff all at once. And so yeah, it's one of those things where it's just got a bunch of problems. The first and foremost problem is the usability issue. So I'm trying to come up with a combat log approach that is easier to understand, like what's going on at a high level, and probably won't be as like in depth. Now I'm almost wondering if I should make these blue. Kind of like that. Okay, so now I'm going to, let's see. I'm gonna try to do this one. Try to shade these up as much as possible. Okay. Put this here. I think that's probably okay. I don't think they're the prettiest eyeballs in the world, but that's okay. Okay. I think we can call that good. I don't have any regrets about that one. Not even a single letter. Okay. I think I like the blue eyeballs better because they provide more, not just more contrast, but just more color into it. Otherwise it would just be all warm colors. The orange vines give that nice dead vibe, which is appropriate, but the two shades of green you have would contrast nicely. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. Gross. Hello, Nathan Byler. University, college, school, whatever. Oh, no, you're not saying it wrong. It's just the word you're typing is collage. College is with an EGE. But that's cool. So you're building up a portfolio for university applications. Hello, Mel's. Got the depth on lock. Thank you. Light Tiramisu, welcome. Ariane, good morning. Put some extra virgin olive oil on that. You got yourself a light but cursed afternoon snack. Do we have Shrek in the chat? Is that Shrek? Cursed salad. Yum. Web exports in Godot Rust do work. I did try it out. Needs a specific version of mscripting at the moment. But other than that, just works. That's interesting. That's really cool, actually. Spaghetti eyeballs, yeah. Spaghetti eyeballs. Okay. So we're going to make this legendary as well. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn the loot table weight way down. This is going to be a reagent, legendary. It's a 1x3 in dimensions. We'll call it Eyes of the Forest. And we'll have flavor text to match. I'm thinking the flavor text will be something about probably something about how the witches of the forest use their victims' eyeballs, or the eyeballs that they take as payment for their rituals, and graft them onto fast-spreading vines so that they can keep watch on everything. But I'm not feeling particularly creative right now to come up with that flavor text. The flavor text is pretty fun to write for this game because not only do I get to come up with all these cool ideas just for fun, but it's a little bit of a challenge to try to write in like a slightly archaic way. So anyway, but I'll do that later. All right, so we need to take that reagent placeholder. We're going to take this out, put this in ivines here. This alchemy duplicate item is adjacent. I might change this. So I think what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to do a pass on all the reagents. I'm going to give the reagents more interesting query directions. So a query direction is basically like, is it adjacent or is it on the left edge of the board or whatever? What I'm realizing is that if I just make the reagents have like these weird query parameters, like sometimes they target the bottom edge, sometimes they target the item to the right, sometimes they affect items on the left half of the board or whatever, then I think that would really bring out the fact that alchemy is kind of like a puzzle, because then if you want to use multiple reagents in an alchemy, you kind of have to like figure out the min-max approach to doing that, right? So I think I'm going to do a pass over all the reagents and give them all like interesting query directions. Because I'm realizing like I don't want to be in a situation where like, oh, you just put the reagent on the board and then like it gives you what you want. You know what I mean? I think I want to just make it like give them placement requirements, right? Like for example, the corrupted rows might be it sets the corruption chance to 0 if it's in the top right corner of the board or something like that, right? So now you'll end up in situations where maybe like the alchemy you wanted to do won't work because your cards just don't fit to make use of everything, and then you'll have to think about like what you want to do instead. I think that would be interesting. Getting it, oh, I see, you're already in college. Getting a job will be harder to get. I see, I got you. So there's our ivines. We're gonna get rid of reagent placeholder. So we get rid of this. Let's do this first. Delete that. Delete this. Delete that. And then I need to do there we go. Build this. Okay. Guess we'll just test it and make sure it works. Creates an exact copy of one adjacent allied item. We have to generate the translation file. I'm going to change this alchemy alchemy duplicate item. This will be left adjacent instead. Build. I'm going to need to rebuild the translations as well. It's kind of annoying. I mean, I'm happy with my translation system. I think that translations are just annoying. That's the other thing with a combat log, is that I need to keep in mind that every bit of text needs to be translated. So the combat log is a little bit more complex than it otherwise would be because of translation support. But that's okay. I think this works for reagents too, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, but I need to add at least one non-reagent item. Okay. So now we do the eye vines. So now I've got 2 of the same skeleton dragon. Very nice. Cool. You can just click on cards to sell. Yeah, if you hold Control, Shift, and click, you can just sell like that. Okay, I think that's all working. So I will commit that, but first I need flavor text. Let's just delete this. What in the heck? I don't know if I'm going to do this second part of this. Probably not. I just need the flavor text now. Okay. Anyway. You just go for a side job, but what do I know for survivability in the long run? Yeah, that makes sense. This is not yet explained in the playtest. No, there's a lot of things in the playtest that aren't explained. Good morning, Ninja Link. Welcome. Good to see you. All right, so I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break. When I come back, we will... we might do this reagent one. I do want to do the cooldown pass, though, so maybe I'll do that. So, for all those of you watching who have played the playtest, well, let's see, what am I trying to say? Any item that you feel has an inappropriate cooldown, either because it's too long or because it's too short, drop that item name in the chat and we'll take a look at it. But otherwise, I'll be right back in 3 minutes and we'll continue on. Okay, I'm back. I have a prisoner. Are you not happy? Meow into the mic. Do it. Go. Show them how you talk. Do it. Oh, that was a tiny one. Okay. Drop a like and subscribe in that pot of mix so we can get that yummy 50k sub. Oh gosh. Oh goodness. All right, so there's a couple of items that I think have not so good cooldowns, but I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of click through here. So if we go to data, whoops. So aberrations, take a look. And you know what I might do is I'll just filter this down. Turn cooldown. Okay, aberration is probably fine. Abomination is probably fine. Acolyte is probably fine. Alembic, I don't know why this is so high. Alembic feels like that's not fine. Alkahest, that's a reagent, so it doesn't matter. Amanita, that's probably fine. Amber, that's a reagent. Ancient coin, I think this one is too fast. Ancient tree, let's just make that an even 70. Anvil, again, I think this is probably a little bit too high. Arming sword is probably a little bit too high. Let's do 38. Oh, not 389, 38 instead. Ascetic is probably fine. Axe is probably fine. Ballista is probably fine. Ballista hits really hard. Banshee head is probably fine. Barkeep is fine. Battle standard. Battle trumpet. Bat head is a reagent. It doesn't matter. Let's turn it up anyway. Bear trap, probably fine. Beast claw. Beer mug, that's way too fast. Why is that so fast? Let's do 41 for that one. We're doing vibes-based balancing. We're going to turn the bell up a little bit. I think bell is still pretty strong. Bellows, bishop, blood bulb. Boatman. The Archangel boss is probably fine. I think all the bosses are fine. Yeah, this boss so large, we're going to turn this up to 100. Boss soul medium, we'll do 60. Boss soul small. Yeah, why is that so low? I must have missed this, but that's okay. We'll do 40. Burning Witch, that's fine. Candle is fine. Carnivorous Plant is a little bit too high, I think. Let's do 105. Carrot. I think Carrot's a little bit too fast. We'll turn that one up. Cat is fine. Cathedral. We'll turn that one down a little bit. Ceremonial Dagger. We're going to move this one up. Oops. We'll give it 2.5 instead of whatever, 1.6 or whatever. Chicken. The chicken is a little bit too fast as well. Chisel, that's fine. Corpse Pile, Corrupted Rose, Corrupted Staff, Corvid. Corvid's probably okay. Corvid is kind of hard to use effectively because it has that echo ability on it. Crown Jewels. Crystal Ball, that one's fine. That one's really powerful. So a high turn cooldown is fine for that one. Dagger, Death Cap, that's a reagent. Death Orchid. I mean, that's a high cooldown, but it's a reagent, so it's fine. Dog is probably okay. Dove is probably okay. Dowsing Rod is okay. Dragon Scales, Drunkard, Edict. Elf in a Jar. We'll turn that one up. It's a reagent, but Embalming Fluid, this one is really high. Let's see. Enemy, no, ally. Heal 4 per adjacent minion, apply 6 armor per allied ritual item. I guess that makes sense. It's kind of a strong item. I think what I'll do though is I will turn it down a little bit because it is a very strong item. Explosive flask is probably fine. Eyeball vine, I just did that one. Fairy wings is fine. Fang is fine. Feast is probably okay. Fire arrow is probably okay. Fox, Friar, Frog, Funeral Pyre. I don't have a whole lot of 7-second items here. There's a 7-second item. Giant squid. We'll leave that alone for now. Actually, no. Turn that one up. Grasping hands. I might nerf this one too. I already made its cooldown ability innate, but also it's so powerful. Like, I really want to be careful now with the CDR items. So we're going to nerf that one a little bit. Make it a little bit harder to get it down to a reasonable level. Because, I mean, here's the thing, right? If you use Grasping Hands with a large item that has a long cooldown, like, that's an immediate buff already, right? So, you know, we want to, I think what I want to do is, like, make those kinds of items, like, situational. Holy water, honey. I have a lot of turn cooldowns grouping up, like, around the 4-second range. I might have to just do a better rebalancing of this. Maybe I should create a tool that kind of like plots the number of cards at each turn cooldown point so I could see what the distribution is like. Because it seems like most of them are like hovering around. The other thing though that's kind of like weird about this is that a second is actually a long time, right? So like moving something up from like 5 seconds to 5.5 seconds can actually be a meaningful change even though it doesn't seem like that much. Leviathan's probably okay. Longbowman is probably okay because the longbowman does a lot of damage. Mace is also probably okay. Maggot, I'm sorry everyone, Maggot is gonna go up. What did I do? I added 1.3 seconds to it. Maiden is fine, Mandrake is fine. Mausoleum Key is another really low one, but I think that's okay. I think that's okay. I might also nerf the Fairy Wings. I mean, they're legendary right now, but I was thinking about making Fairy Wings do, like, it would set both items to the average of the cooldown between them. So it's not like a strict upgrade. I think that that would probably be better. Morale is actually really powerful. Let's turn this up a little bit. 32. Oh, also for context, each increment of 1 is 0.1 seconds. So when you see 35, that's 3.5 seconds. The reason these are stored as integers instead of actual times is because the game doesn't work on a time base. It works on an index base, right? So every time a turn ticks, it increments the index by 1. And doing 1 turn takes 0.1 seconds, right? So the items don't actually have, like, they're not actually being timed individually. They're being, the index of the combat is being incremented. And that's basically what's determining when items execute. Because the problem is, like, if I actually used time, I could end up in sort of like a floating point errors where, you know, these two items had the same cooldown and they were supposed to execute on the same frame, but they didn't because, like, maybe one item had like 0.0001 seconds remaining or something like that. And that would just throw the whole combat out of whack. So everything's like very rigidly on this like index based turn cooldown, and it's just represented as seconds to the player, but it's not actually doing any time-based anything. The time is really just how far apart should the turns be spaced for visual presentation purposes. The time doesn't have any impact at all on the gameplay directly, like how the game flows with the time. Kitty is squeaking. Reagent cooldowns matter to me. I think incense should be lowered by like 1 second. Crystal ball could probably be reduced by 2 seconds. They are so much less useful after the last nerfs. Okay. Let's see. Crystal ball. I was at Mushroom Man, so crystal ball. Let's turn this down to 80. And what else did you say? Incense. Did I get past incense already? Here. I'll meet you halfway. I'll do 45. Best I can do is 45. Okay, so back to Mushroom Man. Mystery Juice. This is too low, sorry. Going up. Newt Tail, Oil, Orbital Class. That's a very situational item. I need to make more like self-damage items. Paladin, Phalanx, Phoenix, Phylactery. Should I nerf the Phylactery? I think I have other ideas for nerfing Phylactery, so I'm not going to change its cooldown yet. How long is one turn? 0.1 seconds, yeah. Time to ride with those balance patches, oh no. What's on the agenda today? Well, I'm just doing basically whatever comes to mind. Just doing random things from the backlog. I'm done with I'm not finished with the combat log, but I need to revisit the combat log later. Scarab is fine, Scarecrow is fine. The Scythe stood out to me as one that like has a really high cooldown for some reason, so we're going to turn that down quite a bit. I feel like the Scythe is like powerful in theory, but its turn cooldown was just so long. Skeleton Dragon. I'm also going to turn this one down. We're going to go to 9.8 seconds instead of 11 seconds. Skeleton Mage, I think Skeleton Mage is fine. Skeleton Warrior is probably fine. I think Spiderlings are fine. Stag, what does the Stag do again? Let me see. Interesting query directions. You are behind, yeah, you are behind by 20 minutes. Pretty cool way of doing it. How do you then time the index increments? Hoping he doesn't notice Mosquito Swarm. Oh, did I pass Mosquito Swarm? How do you then time the index increments? Well, that's just happening. So there's this turn manager. The turn manager is the central like orchestrator for everything. So what happens is when I call start on the turn manager, it actually starts a timer that is, it's 0.1 seconds, but adjusted by whatever game speed you have configured. And then when that timer times out, it calls process turns. In this process turns method, it creates a turn context with all the appropriate data. Wires up the combat log with that turn context. It does some necrosis stuff, and then basically it goes through a list of turn executors. So there's a turn executor for the player and a turn executor for the enemy, and those are in order. So it processes the player's cooldown ticks first, and then the enemy's cooldown ticks. And then it processes the turn tick for the player, and then the enemy turn tick. So the turn tick is actually... So the cooldown tick is just changing the number. So this cooldown tick here, it either decrements the turn cooldown and ticks the turn debuffs or whatever. So that's just processing like the turn cooldown remaining basically. And then let's do turn tick. This one will tick the statuses, and then it will iterate over all of the cards in order. Oh, let's get rid of this. And it will call turn tick on each card in order. But it will only run the card abilities if it can execute the turn. and if the cooldown is finished. I actually don't know why these are two separate methods. This probably could just be moved into that, but anyway. This class has undergone a lot of changes, so it's got some weird structure, but that's okay. But anyway, the turn manager orchestrates everything. So the turn manager does set up a timer, but then when that timer times out, it increments the index and then processes everything. Mosquito swarm is really good. I might, let's see. So we're at stag. Yeah, maybe we'll turn mosquito swarm up a little bit. 6, 7. Okay. Stag. I wonder why the stag is so high. Why? I might turn this down a little bit. Stone sword is really high too. We'll turn that down to 70. Strange man. Sweet roll. Sword in the stone. Syringe. Tapeworm. Sprout. Thorns. I feel like tentacle is a little bit too high. That's a reagent. Torch is fine. That's fine. Villager's fine. Viper is fine, I think. Warhorse has a 3.3 second cooldown. Why is that true? Unlock screen is starting to look like ambitious notebook scribbles from an artist who can't be bothered with math class. Looks really neat. Thank you. I think that's a compliment. I get what you're saying. It's like just a page full of doodles, right? Yeah, why is that a 3.3 second cooldown? I don't understand why that happened. Let's do, for the Warhorse, 65. Warhorn. Why don't you standardize cooldowns to 0.5 increments? Then players manipulate the cooldowns how they want. Because half of a second is a really long time for this kind of game. Like, even just reducing the cooldown of something by like 0.2 or increasing it by 0.2 can completely change how it feels. We're going to turn this one down as well. Wasp, I think, is okay. Werewolf is okay. Werewolf is supposed to be a little bit powerful. I wonder if I should make the werewolf legendary by default. Maybe I should. Zombie has a pretty high cooldown as well. Let's do 71. Okay. So I think all those adjustments are good. I think the ones that I really wanted to change were the skeleton dragon. Turn that down a little bit. The scythe is one that I really wanted to change as well. Of course, adjusting all the reagents. And then, what was the other one that I really wanted to change? I thought there was one more. Well, just fixing all the issues like Warhorse having a really low cooldown for some reason. This screams an Excel table for balancing. I don't think that's necessary. Because the problem is like, the power of an item is not, it can't be measured as DPS, right? So like, I don't even know how I would use a spreadsheet to balance this game. Like, aside from the tools that I was talking about, like being able to see the distribution of all the turn cooldowns to make sure that I'm like filling out the whole like range of turn cooldowns appropriately. So just kind of getting a sense for like, am I like missing a chunk of cards at like in this range of turn cooldown, right? But an item's power is often not related to anything like super measurable. You know what I mean? For example, the incense reduces the cooldown of, what is it, adjacent minion items. And so it's like, how powerful that is kind of depends on like how you're using it. There's no way to measure the DPS impact of that, because maybe it changes the cooldown of a minion item that actually doesn't do any damage, but it maybe projects some kind of ability or whatever. And then the issue too is that of course the alchemy is just like there anyway. So it's, you know, the intention is not really for players to just use raw items. The intention is for players to manipulate the items into the builds that they want. And so the balancing is much more an issue of like the fairy wings thing. Like how easy is it to get something that's like super ridiculously powerful? Or is there any particular ability that stands head and shoulders above the rest that needs to be nerfed, right? But as far as like the base items, it's like it almost, like the only things that matter with the base items is like how powerful are their abilities at base level, and what is their like cooldown and crit multiplier and stuff. But I don't think there's an easy way to plot that in a useful way in an Excel sheet, because again, a lot of them have power that's not related. I think the boatman is a good example, right? So the underworld ferryman here, he has one ability, which is to disable the corrupted abilities of items to the left. How do you plot that in an Excel sheet, right? There's no way to do that. It's entirely like, this is entirely dependent on the context of what your build is. Now, it may be possible that players discover that this guy is super good and they use him in every build, in which case maybe I'll need to nerf him at that point, right? But yeah, I'm very skeptical that like a spreadsheet based way of balancing this game would be effective at all. And the other thing too is like, there should be asymmetries, right? There should be items that are more powerful than others. And I can change their power in different ways rather than just straight up nerfing their DPS or whatever, right? Like I could make them rarer, or I could give them an ability that has a downside to make them a little bit less appealing to choose. Overly ambitious doodles. So any thought process behind 5.1 or 8.3? You're just thinking about more than 8. I mean, the thought process is just filling out the whole range of turn cooldowns, like I said. Hello, early 2K. Hello, Ashwin. Is K the only alphabet that's missing a card? Time to introduce the most OP one. I guess so. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Hello, V. Welcome back. K should be something with king. Yeah, it should be. I should definitely... That's probably a good way to come up with ability ideas, is figure out what letters are missing or not represented, and then like come up with items that fit that. Game has become very complex. That's not even a spreadsheet can solve. I mean, I think so. I mean, it's not like a spreadsheet would be totally useless. I just think that it would be probably not as helpful as what I'm doing, which is just like, I mean, I joke all the time about it being vibes-based balancing, but I think that's really what it comes down to. It's like an item can be powerful for a number of reasons, and the obvious way to reduce an item's power is not always going to be to just change its ability, right? One way to change an item's power is to increase the turn cooldown, right? Which would change the DPS. But if it doesn't have any damaging abilities, but rather other abilities like debuffs or whatever, that's still a power change, making it rarer, adding some kind of downside, changing how its abilities target other things. So instead of, saying all adjacent items, I could change it to be left adjacent, right? It wouldn't actually change any of the numbers, but it does reduce the totality of like the total number of cards that it can affect. So yeah, there's like a number of levers to pull for each item. So yeah. Anyway, it's a hard problem though, for sure. I'm an incoming IT freshman, and I've recently started learning Python, SQL, and some Python libraries. There's so much to learn in tech that I'm not always sure what to prioritize. Looking back at your journey, if you were starting from scratch today, what skills, technologies, or projects would you focus on first to maximize your growth and career opportunities? Well, the problem is, like, when I started getting into programming and started getting paid to do programming, there was no such thing as AI, right? So I don't know, like, that I'm kind of like, we're kind of in a weird spot where, like, I don't know how much of the traditional advice is actually going to be useful going forward. But I could tell, I could just share my experience. So the way that I learned, the way that I got better at programming is I actually did a bunch of different things all the time. So I didn't actually master any one thing. Like I didn't master JavaScript, I didn't master Python, I didn't master Java. But rather I like did a bunch of different projects either on my own or with a company where I was exposed to all kinds of different frameworks and languages, deployment processes, infrastructure, databases. I mean, of course you've got your SQL databases, but you've also got NoSQL databases, right? Like Firebase, MongoDB, that kind of stuff. So I think, my advice would just be like, learn as much as you possibly can, right? Like it's useful to like learn how to, for example, interface with an S3 bucket. It's useful to understand how NoSQL databases work and when they can be used appropriately. It's useful to know how to build a web server in Python. It's useful to know how to build a web server in Java or C#. And all of these different languages and frameworks have like their own little idiosyncratic ways of doing things, but then you'll start to notice patterns of commonality between all of those things. And it's those common patterns that are the useful things to know. The individual tech and languages are not as important. What's important is like, what are the unifying principles? What are the things that are similar between all these things? And getting a good grasp on that is really good, because then you'll just become like extremely useful. Like I think it is the case that you'll be more useful to an employer if you're the kind of person that's like, yeah, I can do everything, right? Versus if you're just like, no, I only learned Python, that's all I can do. So I don't know if that helps you, because you just said that there's a lot to learn. But I guess what I'm saying is like, learn it all. And what I mean by learn it all is obviously like you're not going to be able to learn everything there is to learn in software, obviously. But at the same time, cultivating a bunch of skill sets all together is going to be really valuable, or at least it was valuable in my case. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but yeah, that is the like my programming skills got better when I started getting exposed to more things more rapidly, is basically what I'm trying to say. Kind of like to translate the turn period into frames. Has anyone discovered any infinites in Alchemy Mortis? Learning from the pros, make some projects end to end, learn the foundations of what needs to get those projects done. Yeah, that's a good project, yeah, is like doing a full stack application, right? So you set up your front end, you set up your back end, you set up your database, and then you also set up a deploy pipeline for that. like just having a project like that, even if it's something super simple. And even learning like the various providers that are out there, right? Like learning how to use Vercel effectively, or Google Cloud Platform, or AWS. Learning how to use infrastructure as code, all that kind of stuff. Make a to-do app in various languages. Put that on my to-do list. Copying something just to learn how it was done. So one programming interview test that I had to do for one job that I was applying for is they basically, I forgot what the exact requirements were, but they basically had me build an end-to-end, like, or not an end-to-end, but yeah, kind of like a full stack app that connected to Spotify, that connected to the Spotify API. So the goal was you should be able to connect your Spotify account to the app. And then it was something like show your most recently listened to songs with the album art or whatever else. But anyway, that was a good example of like what I'm talking about. Like an employer wants to see that you can be effective doing anything. So I, of course, had to go through the Spotify authentication flow. I had to store, it's been a while since that happened, but I think it was the typical, you know, you've got your refresh token, so you need to make sure that you're using the refresh token to re-authenticate or regenerate your authentication credentials. And then, of course, like doing the API interface, the Spotify API interfacing, so you can actually get your data from Spotify, and then using the front end to display all that data in a nice way. Stuff like that, you know. Anyway. Actually, you know what the most fun interview test project I did was? It was an HTML5 project. It was a little HTML5 ski game. And this was not for like a game company. It was just for a standard, you know, startup or whatever. And it was like this little ski game where it's kind of like the dinosaur game in Google Chrome, right? When you're not connected to the internet. But it was like a top-down ski game where you're like going down the slope and you've got to like dodge all these things. But it was an incomplete project, and they basically said, hey, you know, we want to see you implement these features, and then if you want to go above and beyond, here's the other features that you could implement. And of course, me having experience with game development, that was a really fun project. Like I remember I created like a vector2 class, and then I was creating all these like vector helper functions to do like speed and acceleration. I created like an animation player class that could cycle through some animation frames and like have a very nice API to control that. That was really fun. Anyway. Okay. Oops, I spelled pass wrong. That's okay. I don't care. What matters, experience, try it yourself. You get to learn more as you progress, make it without helpers. Yeah. That's done. So I do want to play around with the offset transform for UI elements. I haven't really had a chance to actually use that in 4.7 yet. But if I look at like my drawer UI here and I go to my player inventory, I turn on this offset transform. I can animate this now using this position. And what's nice is that there's a position ratio too. So you don't actually need to know the exact position of the thing. I can just say turn like position ratio to -1 in the X. Actually, it would need to be a little bit more than that because it's not quite right. But, you know, -1.05 for the position ratio. Then I can animate this in very nicely. And I won't have to use these pass-through controls that I have to use. Actually, where is that pass-through control? Here. So this pass-through control... Yeah, so I could turn on the offset transform here and turn the position ratio. Well, I might have to actually use an actual position because I need the buttons to be visible. The thing though is that may not work because it's not actually... I don't think that actually changes the clickable position of those things. Yeah, so like if I look at the inventory button here, it's still clickable over there. Is there a way to change that? So I may not actually want to do this for at least this stuff because the benefit of my approach, the way I'm animating it, is that it actually changes the position of the controls. So really this offset, this transform offset, would only be useful for things that I just need to like animate in once or animate out once. But in the case of the drawer here, I actually need the clickable areas of these buttons to change. So maybe that's not actually a good idea for that one. I wonder if the same is true for the alchemy drawer though. I mean, I might as well not mess with that. It's working, so I just wanted to play around with it, but oh well. I think that's probably the biggest weakness of that, is that it's nice for animations and stuff, but if you actually need the clickable areas of the controls to change, then that's not the right solution for it. So it's like with all things in Godot, it's kind of like a half-baked solution. It fixes like half of the use case of wanting to animate UI things, but without changing the clickable area, it's not going to be incredibly useful. I mean, I suppose maybe I should try that before I've determined that that's how it works. It does say it's a transform, it's not just visual. Well, I'll tell you what, let's just, I'm kind of curious how this works actually. So let me just try it. So this one line will help me determine if that transform actually applies to the clickable area or not. Yeah, see. So yeah, this is actually not going to be useful. So it's just a visual transform. It's not an actual transform. So see here, the inventory button thinks it's here because it's just applying a visual offset. So I can't click this, but I can click here to open. Yep, that's not going to work. Okay. That's how I figured it worked, but that's kind of disappointing. So I basically can't use that for the inventory. I have to keep using my solution for the inventory, which is fine. Yeah, I mean, this honestly, I was excited for the offset transform there, but it's just not going to work for my use case at all because I actually need the position of the controls to change. The only situation where I could see that being useful is for like a custom button. So I still want to play around with this a little bit. So we'll do tween.ease type .in. Oh, come on, just type this, thank you. Since when is Godot 4.7 out? It's the release candidate. It's a release candidate, so that doesn't look good at all. You can tell if somebody is an experienced Godot dev by whether or not they have trauma trying to animate UI. Yeah, animating UI is very not fun. What is going on here? Does the unlock screen not use custom button? Honestly, I'm not even sure why those buttons are breaking. Anyway, it's a fun little experiment, but I don't think this is going to be useful. I'm in a journey in learning Linux. I don't know how useful it might be. There's a visual only. Did I miss that? Where is that? How did I miss that? So wait, this will actually change. Oh, okay. All right, I apologize for calling this solution half-baked. Okay, now we're in business. Thank you for pointing that out. That would have been one of those things where I discovered like 3 months later and been like, wait a minute, I could have been using this all along. Okay, I am much less disappointed now. I am much less disappointed now. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I don't know how I missed that. Do you ever use AI for coding like Claude Code or Codex? Yes, I do. Claude Code. Claude Code. Okay, so let's see what I can actually do with this. Yeah, so I actually don't need this inventory pass-through control anymore, so that can go away. So we've got our animation root now. So let's just do one thing at a time. So we got our animation root. So let me go here. Offset transform on, turn off visual only. All right, let's see how this works. Control.property name, not offset transform position. Okay, all right, let's take a look. Let's see what that does. If I can get rid of those pass-through controls, that's going to be so nice. Twitch chat beat me to it. There's a dope app, by the way, goes hard with your hairstyle and glasses. Thank you. Thank you, Joseph E. West. Oh my gosh, it actually works? Wow, it's exactly the same functionality as my pass-through control that I wrote, but now I don't have to use this monstrosity. I mean, look at this monstrosity here. Like, this is a little custom container that I wrote. Basically what it is it's a container that will inherit the size flags of its children so that it matches, so that it fills exactly the space that the child would fill, essentially. But because this is a container that does not, so basically, how do I want to explain this? Most Godot containers, all Godot's containers, will change the positions of their children automatically, which makes sense, right? Because they're containers. The problem is when you have something that's part of a layout flow and you want to animate it in or whatever, you can't do that. You'll be fighting against the container wanting to constantly update that item. So the base container class here, this base container class, this is the only exception. This container class does not automatically update the positions and transforms of its children. And so I created this pass-through control, which is basically just designed to reserve the exact space in the flow that the child needs to reserve by going through the tree and like inheriting all of the properties, right? Actually, it would be not inheriting, it would be like adopting, because it's looking at the children, then applying the children's properties to itself. But then because this container does not explicitly change the positions of any children, I can freely animate the children of a pass-through control with a tween or something, and I won't be fighting against anything because there's nothing else trying to update the child. So essentially I end up with a situation where like this artifact pass-through control here. So I change this artifact animation root. So if I change the layout here, the container sizing, if I change this to fill, so that artifact root fills. And now if I look at the pass-through control, see the pass-through control has filled out, has adopted that size flag as well. And then I was able to animate this artifact animation root because it's underneath that pass-through control. But now with this change, I don't need any of this stuff here, which is great. Get a disappointed debuff with an additive burning effect from me trolled. Yeah. Amount of crap I had to do to make juicy buttons for my game, absolutely insane. Transform offset is going to be a huge game changer. Yeah, I'm very happy with, now that I know that it's not visual only, I'm very happy with it. Don't talk about your children like that. It's beautiful if you just take your glasses off. I've been using 4.7 since the first dev version. Yeah, I used to use the dev versions a lot, but the problem is, like, now that I have an actual game that needs to be correct and not buggy and not corrupted or whatever. I mean, I have version control, obviously, but I try to wait until like the stable version is released before updating Alchemortis, but the release candidate is stable enough, and I needed, so 4.7 not only has the offset stuff, which I didn't really need, but I wanted. 4.7 actually had a bunch of fixes to BB code tables specifically, and I was using the tables quite heavily for displaying like the combat stats and stuff, and I was banging my head on the table like, I'm using this table correctly. I'm setting all the size flags for the cells and everything like that, but it just wasn't working. And lo and behold, it was because it just like was bugged. So 4.7 fixes a lot of that. So I needed the 4.7 release candidate for the BB code rich text stuff, but now I have the offset root. So now let's update the artifact animation root. We'll put this here. Oops, not there. I will say I don't really like this change that they made to this. It's kind of confusing to tell what level I'm putting this at. Anyway, so artifact animation root. I forgot to turn on the offset transform, but that's okay. This is so nice. Oh, that's so nice. I may be able to simplify my scene tree as well. I might have to look into doing that. Wow, that's so nice. I wonder if I could add little animations to these buttons now. These buttons feel a little bit static. You know what? I'm going to keep just updating this. This is not necessary for the game to release. It was working fine before, but I really do want to get everything migrated over to that system because it's so nice. And to think I would have just like completely not done this if I didn't see that little checkbox. How long did it take you to get decent at pixel art? Years. Years. I did pixel art for my game Gunforged, and then so that took a while. And then starting Alchemortis, I wasn't that great at pixel art, and so my skill has improved over the course of Alchemortis' development. And I would say I'm still improving, but I think I'm at the point now where I could be called a decent pixel artist. I think a lot of my art is like nothing too special. Definitely not at the level of some of these pixel artists you see on x.com and other places, but it's years. Yeah, it took probably two years to get to this point. Whoever implemented this deserves sainthood. Yeah, Godot sainthood. The Pantheon. Honestly, they should just take like, I mean, maybe they already do this. Oh yeah, they already do put the developers in the credits. Did you know there's a little Easter egg here? Where is it? Godot credit roll. All right, I'll leave the Godot credit roll going. I'm gonna go take a quick 3-minute break, and then when I come back, I'm just gonna keep working with the offset transform stuff. So I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, give me 1 second before I turn my camera back on. Okay. Oops, I closed Godot because I thought that was my game running. Whoops. Battlefield Studios is a Godot sponsor now? Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like to see that. Twitch gave me an ad with Gordon Ramsay spraying people with water, breaking into their houses to get them to try Uber Eats. Wow. That's fun. Saluting as these roll. That's credits, yeah, credit roll. Hello, Budget Jim. I've been driving the past hour, so it's been hard to stay caught up. Oh, that's understandable. Looks like you completed Godot's. That means Let's Play series is over now. Yeah, Let's Play. We're doing a Godot Let's Play. That's going to be the stream title tomorrow. Godot Let's Play. Are those only active Patreons? My name wasn't there. I don't know. Oh no, that wasn't the credits for my game. If you're confused about that. No, that was the credits for Godot. If you go to About Godot and you click on the project manager's name a couple times, it starts the Godot credits. So this is not Alchemortis credits. So just making that clear. The Alchemortis credits will not look like that. They will be much nicer. Have you been on DEF CON? I don't know what that is, no. Okay, anyway, continuing on. Drawer UI. So board pass-through control. This one's a little bit interesting, but YOLO. Board pass-through control. Okay, so board animation route. I mean, it's just gonna be the same deal. We do offset transform, turn off visual only. One of these days I want to sit down and try to make an extension or a plugin that allows you to define defaults for new nodes that you add. But anyway, don't need to worry about that just yet. Board animation route. So we go in here. Board animation route. Okay. So literally just a matter of changing these properties. That's pretty nice. Okay, let's make sure all that works. Excellent. Now I wonder for the offset, get collapsed position, vector to left times node dot size. Yeah, so I think for this one, I can actually do something different. I could do offset transform ratio. Position ratio is equal to vector 2 dot left. And then I can animate this here. Offset transform position ratio to vector 2.0. And then this one can be vector 2 dot left, offset transform position ratio. Oh, that's going to be so nice. I could change all of my events and stuff too. I mean, I'm probably not going to do that, but wow, it's so nice. I want to see if I can make those buttons, like give those buttons a little bit of an animation as well. But anyway, sweet. So use offset transforms for inventory UI. I will eliminate all uses of pass-through control. I mean, I was happy with this. This worked really well. I used it extensively in Gunforged as well, but always want to prefer the native way of doing things rather than writing my own duplicate code. Okay, so now these buttons, what is this drawer padding for? Oh, I see. It's part of the board animation root. So here, are there any pass-through controls in here? These are just normal controls or normal containers, so that's fine. Inventory toggle button pass-through controls. Do I actually need those anymore? Are those animated? Let's see. Oh, those are not even necessary anymore. So I can get rid of, I can just move this here, get rid of this, move this one here, get rid of that. Oops. Okay. Why are you opening without me telling you to? So for these inventory toggle buttons, I kind of want to try giving them a little bit of an animation. So if I do offset, and I'll keep the visuals only on for this one. Offset transform. I think I might want to make them like pop out a little bit. I tried to do this before, but it was just too hard to get to work with my previous approach. But now that I have this, on mouse entered, on mouse exited, I can make them, I can give them little bounce animations. Let's see. Oh wait, we have a tween here already. Am I even using this animate in anywhere? No, get rid of this. And animate out is not being used either. Get rid of this. Okay. On mouse entered. Tween.tween property. You know what I'm going to do? Public static tween control offset transform this node control. Wait, where's my tween position? Oh, is that in my Godot utilities? It is. That's okay. Oops, tween.ease type.out.set transition. Let's see what happens. Is Yummer's credit still included? Just wondering since somebody suggested it months ago. Maybe, maybe. It looks like someone on their DEF CON is a meetup for programmers, hackers, etc. It's a big one. Oh, interesting. Well, I do look like a programmer, I would say. I'm constantly teasing my wife about that. I'm dressed in programmer chic is what I call it. Why is this not working? Object reference not set to an instance of object. Excuse me? Oh. It would help if I actually created the tween first. Don't say anything if it's a surprise thing. Thanks for answering the question. You're welcome. So these buttons would need to be extended a little bit because they're kind of like floating. I could make them go the other way potentially. These buttons, I may have to extend these buttons a little bit, but that's okay. Let's see. Yeah, I might have to do that. Well, that's definitely not a surprise anymore. Yeah, we'll see. I might do some fun things with the credits. Yeah, I think I'm gonna need to like redo some of the art of these buttons if I want to get an animation to look good for these. But I'd still want to spend a lot of time like working on the animations and stuff, like just the interactivity. What happens if I make it go like down or something instead? I've been deciding between 2 points, or 2 paths. One is becoming a full stack developer working from back end to front end. The other is pursuing cybersecurity or network DevOps. DevOps people make good money, that's for sure. At least they did when I was working. Maybe it's one of those things where maybe I do like vector2.right here, and then I do this, and I do vector2.0. So I pop it out when I hover over it, and I pop it back in. The problem is like, yeah, it's got too much of a there's not enough art behind that. I kind of designed them to just be like static, but I wonder... what I could do about that. Especially on the side of the screen here. Looks a little odd coming out like that. What would I do about that? I mean, I could just fake it. Let's see. I'm going way off on a tangent, but that's okay. This is a little bit weird, but that's okay. What happened to the background during battles? Is it gone? The background during battles should still be there. Yeah, it's there. Which reminds me, I need to do different backgrounds for each of the regions. I still have like so much visual polish to do, as well as all the new content, as well as the combat log rework, as well as finishing translations, controller support. I was thinking too, like I'm trying to avoid scope creep, but one problem I have with the current version of the game is like the grow board event is basically the same up and down and left and right. It's just convenience, right? So like if you've got items on the right edge of the board and you want to keep them on the right edge, you can grow left instead of going right. But I was thinking, what if I made the grow board event actually provide some kind of buff to, I think this is an idea that has been thrown around before, but make the grow board event provide some kind of buff to items that are in those cells. So like you grow board up, and like if you grow board up, every item, and not just any item that exists, it's not any item that exists on the top cell. It would be like the top cell rows give you like a 5% crit chance buff, right? And if you grow down, maybe those ones have their cooldown reduced by 0.2, right? If you grow left, you get like an extra projected ability, like 1 fire damage or something, or 1 fire application, right? And the idea is there would be a whole collection of these things that would be randomized each seed, right? So you get like these permanent buffs that are tied to certain rows or columns of the board. And that's just like an extra thing to strategize around. What do you guys think of them apples? Actually, I wonder... That's similar to what I mentioned for nerfing Alter, projecting its ability to specific cells. I like it. So now we change this. Ignore. We grab a reference to that. Actually, I'll just put this here. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting thing. I just don't know how I would represent that exactly. Like how would I mark each cell as having... I could put like little icons below the board or something. Maybe that would work, actually. I'm kind of going off way on some tangents now, but I think sometimes, when you have inspiration, you just need to like capitalize on it, even if it takes you way off on a tangent. So like, let's say that I grew the board left and I got a column here. What I could do is I could have like a little... some kind of little orb. Well, that's not centered at all, is it? One little trick you can do is that you can hold control in Sprite, and that will show you the bounds of the current layer, but it also shows you the lines of symmetry. So if you need to bring a symmetry line over, you can just snap it there. See? So something like this. I don't know, like, I'm obviously not gonna do the art in full right now, but I mean, it just looks like a little too even. Something like that. Yeah. So anyway, you've got like these little orb things. They just kind of like point up to the row, or, you know, I would take this, paste it, if it, so that's the column, right? But then for the row, it would take this, rotate it that way. I would have to change the lighting, but. So you've got these little orbs that point to the row or column that they're affecting. And then you'd be able to like hover over them. So these would become, let's do an outline. These would become hoverable elements that you could hover over, and it would show a tooltip about what's currently active. And then of course, like as you grow your board, you get more of these items, right? So like if you grew it left twice, there would be 2 next to each other, right? If you grew it, let's say to the right, it would be over here, right? If you grew your board up, there would be 1 there. And so these would be hoverable elements. And maybe they're just like, I don't know, maybe they're just like constantly animating or something. Just like really subtle animations, but you can hover over them. It will like highlight the row and tell you what the bonus is. I think the main concern would be expanding in the same direction over and over to stack effects. I think that would be fine though, because that would dramatically limit like what you can do with your board, right? Like if you imagine in the current version of the game, if you just build your board in the same direction every time, you can make that work. But like, for example, the priestess, right? I think she has a board that's 3 tiles tall and 2 tiles wide. So if you just kept growing up, you wouldn't be able to fit any 3x3 items on your board, right? And if you kept growing right, you may not be able to like make use of some of the different item shapes, right? So I think there would still be a trade-off, and the idea would be like these would not be like super powerful. They would just be like minor bonuses, like I was saying, like 5%, you know, crit chance increase, or 0.2 second cooldown reduction, right? It can even be conditional, right? Instead of saying like, you know, all items gain fire, you could just say something like, any item that has a fire ability in this row will gain a certain bonus. Like it could be restrictive, right? So still be situational, where, because again, like the idea is that there would be a whole pool of these benefits, right? It wouldn't just be like the same options every time. If you imagine there are like 25 or 50 different board effects that you could choose from during the grow board, then it may not actually be that useful to stack them. I don't know. What do you think? Moved an add-on and it just kind of stayed there when I opened the project. Oops. I'm back. What's this new icon? I'm discussing an idea that I had. Well, it's not, I guess it's not really my idea, but the idea that we've talked about previously of giving rows and columns of the board certain bonuses based on like the grow board event, right? So whenever you grow your board, instead of just choosing which direction to grow it in, it will also add an effect to that row or column, like a small buff. You know what I mean? One second. There was a little tiny flying bug that landed on my finger. I was kind of worried it was a termite, but it's not. Okay. Each character to have one layout of these things. Yeah, that would be interesting, doing per character options. But anyway, do I plan to add challenge runs? What do you have in mind, Jack, for challenge runs? Like a daily run or something? Anyway, what do you guys think of that idea? Good idea, bad idea? Changes the game too much? What do you think? Daily, no alchemy reagents only, spending blood, etc. Yeah, I mean, I could do that. I'm getting to the point now where I have to be really careful about like what new stuff I add to the game. You know, you could argue that, well, this is one such new thing, but the problem, like, it really does bother me, but that the grow board event doesn't really mechanically change the game other than giving you board space. Okay. All right. So I think I will do that then. Add board row / column based buffs. And I could do all kinds of stuff. Like I could have one where it's like, if this row has at least one empty slot, then all the other items in this row gain this ability or whatever, right? Okay, that's gonna be fun. I'm actually really excited about that. I would just want to save this. I'm actually, this orb icon is not too shabby either. Alchemortis assets. It's called board effect, I guess. Anyway, back to the thing that I was working on before I got sidetracked. adding debuff there as a bonus for people for their challenges. Well, I was thinking that would be a difficulty modifier. So I was thinking that there would be a difficulty modifier that would also add a negative to any board growth. So it would have a positive row or column effect plus a negative one. And you can't skip grow board events either, so you'd have to take the negative. If you did add challenge runs, there could even be more unique ones than just disabling and limiting the player. For example, have a map that has the middle board grow turn into bosses instead. Yeah. I think probably challenge runs, I would love to do that as like a post-release patch, because that is something that I could easily add. But I don't want to, I really need to be in the mode where I'm like, I'm just working with the existing systems and polishing those up. You know, like there's so much stuff that could be done or should be done with this game, but I have to think carefully about what exactly is going to be, done. Now I'm kind of thinking, I'm just going all over the place here. Okay. That's a good one. Maybe these could all be difficulty modifiers though. Yeah, challenge runs would be something radical about the game changes, right? Something that's not part of the typical Something that's not part of the typical experience. Very new to your project, but I think it could be cool if the orb icon reflected the effect. Yeah, I think that is true, but the problem is if I've got 50 of those effects, I'd have to draw 50 different icons potentially. Because they're not all going to be the same, right? It's not going to be, oh, there's 10 different fire effects and 10 different poison effects. It might just be like very random or very, what's the word? Diverse, I guess. Hello, Alex P-A-E-F. Alex Pef. Welcome. Good to see you. Got hypnotized by your own button move creation, yeah. I think this does look better, though. I want to try, like, a click animation as well. Get rid of this. Okay. Hello, Ignosum. Welcome back. It's going well. How are you doing? Okay, I kind of want to try... I just want to see what this looks like. Tried the playtest yesterday. It looked sick, although I was a little overwhelmed. I never played an auto battler like this before. Yeah, the new player experience is something that I need to work on as well. The new player experience is something I definitely need to work on. Love how the map nodes get revealed by that darkness shader. Is that a custom shader? Yes, it is, yeah. I'm actually really happy with the... I'm really happy with the Fog of War shader. I want to try something here. I think the Fog of War is a really good, I really like that mechanic. I think it adds a little bit of mystery to the game, but also yeah, I mean, I think it's just nice to like not know what's coming up ahead. Because what I didn't want, so the Fog of War is designed because I didn't want the player to be able to plan their route through the entire game before they even started moving. And you know, the map is a lot larger than like Slay the Spire's map, right? So like Slay the Spire, you can see everything ahead of time, and you know some of the events are like mystery events, right? So you don't know, and that's kind of how they handle like the element of the unknown. But with this game, I don't have any like sort of like dynamic question mark events or whatever. So limiting the amount of nodes you can see ahead of you allows you some element of planning, like, oh, I want to go visit this node, and this node, without making it the optimal strategy to like sit at the start and like create an exact path through the map. So I think it works really well. I think, you know, there was a period of time where we were discussing like if it was necessary to have the Fog of War. But I think it's good for the game. Good content opportunity for you, like how to play type of series. Oh, for Alchemortis, yeah. I'm working on a pixel art top-down shooter made with C++ and SDL, planning to put a demo on Steam by the end of the summer. Awesome. I might make this 0.1 as well. Just trying to add some more dynamism to these buttons. I mean, this is not really... not really that important, but I've seen one game that give you a tutorial on how to do things like jumping, and they reward you with, you did it, you actually freaking did it. Oh. How does the shader work? Is it like a texture that you draw as a player reveals more, or is the position of the points you reveal around an area? Or like a position of points you reveal around an area? Yeah, it's a texture. I can explain it in a second. Honestly, maybe I don't need that little bounce back. Maybe it could just be that. So it's not a list of position points. It's basically the way it works is I have a sub viewport and I put a bunch of sprite 2Ds, which are like gradient mask textures. And that sub viewport basically renders a black background with all of these gradient, like radial gradients on it for each point that's revealed. And then that viewport texture becomes the mask to determine what to cut out of the Fog of War, right? Okay, I think that's fine. The only issue here is the label is moving around with that, but that's okay. That was a nice break. It's nice to be able to just go and work on like that kind of little visual stuff. So happy with the new offset transforms. Yeah, it's a pretty elegant solution. Yeah, let me show you. Let me see if I can show you real quick. So yeah, we've got the Fog of War sub viewport. It has a color rect here, which is just black. So it renders black background, right? And then you can see the reveal textures here. So this Fog of War reveal texture, it's just a radial gradient with transparency on it. And so I copy this, and basically what I do is I create new sprite 2Ds. And the reason why I do this, so I create a sprite 2D. I don't know if I can, yeah, so let's see. Can I like move the sprite 2D? Yeah. So that sprite 2D gets drawn or rendered to the sub viewport like that, right? And so this is the mask texture that like overlays the screen and serves as the cutout for the Fog of War. And the reason it has to be a gradient is because that influences the edges of the Fog of War because they're animated with a scrolling like noise texture basically. But the reason I do a sub viewport in particular is because it's very easy for me to just like, I have the camera for the sub viewport. So I essentially just make the camera the same as the in-game camera position. And then I could just put these sprite 2Ds at the world positions, right? I don't have to do any like transforms. I basically just say, put the sprite 2Ds right on top of the map nodes that are revealed, right? In the sub viewport. But since there is a one-to-one match between the sub viewport's world position and the normal game's world position, I just say, add the sprite, add the mask at this position. The camera determines like what is in view to be rendered. That gets all rendered to the sub viewport, and then the shader is just like a screen level shader, right? It just like it covers the whole screen. But since the transforms, or at least the world positions, are all one-to-one with the game world, it just very naturally makes it so that this texture updates and scrolls with the camera, right? Is it using a sub viewport only way to get the Fog of War effect? I wouldn't have thought of it. I would have tried an SDF approach. I mean, I'm sure it's not the only approach. No, I find it conceptually easier to think about it as like a mask texture that's being drawn and then use the mask texture to do the shader. But, you know, I'm sure I could have like passed in an array of positions or whatever, and then just had like the shader or the position transforms like updated in the shader or something. I played Gunforge and really enjoyed it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Glad you did. Could add some custom textures super easily too. Yeah. So there's actually two different textures. There's a slightly more dense texture for the patrol flag reveal specifically. And so like I can control like how strong the masking effect is or what size it is. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. All right, Snup Bill, have a good night. I'm going to hop off too, actually. Definitely need to remember that if I ever want to do something similar. Thanks for the shader explanation. Super useful. You're welcome. Okay, but anyway, I am going to end the stream there. I'm going to think about that board effects thing. I think that would be really cool to do. Of course, I'd have to have those saved and everything, but that's all right. Anyway, you can wishlist Alchemortis on Steam. The playtest is also still open, so give the playtest a shot if you're interested. I would appreciate that. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for being here. It was a lot of fun as always. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you back here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Okay, bye-bye for now.